Welcome to Beyond the Rituals. This is the second episode in our series, exploring Hindu death traditions. Today, we trace the historical origins of Hindu death rituals and how they evolved. The rituals surrounding death in Hindu tradition, known as Antyeshti or last sacrifice, have roots extending back thousands of years. These practices evolved gradually, reflecting changing understandings of life, death, and the soul's journey. In the earliest Vedic period, around 1500 to 500 BCE, funerary practices were relatively simple. The Rigveda contains hymns addressing death and funeral rites. These early ceremonies centered on cremation, with fire serving as the messenger carrying the deceased to the next world. The Rigveda speaks of Agni, the fire deity, who knows the path to the gods, and can transport the departed to their ancestors. This connection between fire and transformation remains central to Hindu death rituals today. As Vedic culture evolved into early Hinduism during the Upanishadic era, the philosophical understanding of death deepened. The Upanishads began to explore the relationship between the individual self, atman, and the universal self, Brahman. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad offers this perspective. As a caterpillar, having reached the end of a blade of grass, takes hold of another blade and draws itself to it, so the self, having left this body behind it unconscious, takes hold of another body and draws itself to it. This metaphor represents one of the earliest expressions of reincarnation, suggesting that death is not an end but a transition from one form to another. During this period, we also see the emergence of key concepts like karma and samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. These ideas significantly influenced how death was understood and how rituals were performed. By the time of the Garuda Purana, between 400 and 1000 CE, Hindu death rituals had become more elaborate and codified. This text provided detailed instructions for funeral rites and described the soul's journey after death. According to the Garuda Purana, the soul experiences various stages after leaving the body, including a year-long journey to the realm of Yama, the god of death. The text describes how the soul needs sustenance during this journey, provided through rituals performed by living relatives. This is the origin of practices that continue today, such as Pinda Dana, the offering of rice balls to nourish the departed soul, and Tarpana, water offerings that quench the soul's thirst during its journey. Medieval and regional developments further enriched these practices. As Hinduism spread throughout the Indian subcontinent, it encountered diverse cultural traditions that influenced how death rituals were performed. In regions like Bengal, elaborate Shraddha ceremonies developed, while in parts of South India, unique practices emerged around ancestor worship. These regional variations show how flexible Hindu death traditions have been. The medieval period also saw the rise of bhakti movements that emphasized devotion over ritual. Saints like Kabir questioned the efficacy of elaborate ceremonies, suggesting that true remembrance comes from the heart rather than external practices. The modern era has brought further evolution. Urbanization has necessitated adaptations. Migration has created diaspora communities that must perform rituals far from traditional locations. Environmental concerns have prompted innovations in how cremations are conducted. Throughout these changes, the core understanding of death as a transition rather than an end has remained consistent. The ritual elements continue to serve multiple purposes, helping the departed soul, providing structure for grieving, and reinforcing community bonds. What do these historical developments tell us about the purpose and meaning of death rituals? They reveal that these practices have never been static. They have evolved in response to changing philosophical understandings, cultural exchanges, and practical necessities. This historical perspective raises important questions. If these rituals have changed over time, what aspects are essential? How much adaptation is possible while maintaining their spiritual purpose? The history of Hindu death rituals shows a tradition that has been both enduring and adaptable, maintaining core philosophical concepts while responding to new circumstances and understandings. In our next episode, we'll explore the tension between ritual observance and inner spirituality in Hindu traditions. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Rituals.